Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with Andy Hays. Andy, it's great to connect with you, Hays Firm and Think Community. Many of you who listen to the show know I am a business coach. I work with successful people from solopreneurs to fortune companies and everything in between. And I work with them many people who are stuck and get them unstuck. Today, Andy is going to share some wisdom with you that will get you unstuck. Take one thing off the shelf, maybe save some for later. But this is a topic that I think many people are stuck in and not even thinking about, Andy, which is you are an estate probate and business attorney. And I find that many people do not think about and have an estate plan. And I think it's something that people think about when something bad happens, and then they say, oh, I got to do it. And maybe it gets put on their list, maybe not in the priority that it needs to be. Talk a little bit about, if you could, and thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. You know, why people, if they don't have an estate plan, need one starting today.
Sure. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me here. It's funny you mentioned the word stuck several times in that intro. And yes, stuck is what people are with estate plans. I mean, it's laborious to kind of even just take that first step down, sorting all that out, identifying all your assets. What do you want to have happen? I mean, it's just so remote from the way that people, especially entrepreneurs, typically operate, right? I mean, entrepreneurs are thinking about the future, but every entrepreneur I've ever met is extremely optimistic, and that's what keeps them getting out of bed in the morning. So
correct.
They're not thinking about the day they don't get out of bed in the morning. An estate plan is, there was a lot in that. I mean, I'm happy to ask any specific question, but some people think about estate plans as, well, what happens when I die? I mean, it's not even that simple, So an estate plan, specifically with a trust, I mean, that can handle a situation where maybe you have some kind of disability or you're in an accident and you can't manage your affairs. But you need to be able to provide continuity for management of both your business and just your personal investments and assets and all of that. So, I mean, as you say, if you have no plan, then you're going to get thrown into the probate court, whether it's guardianship court if you're disabled, or probate court after you pass, and then your assets will be distributed, by the statute written by the wise legislatures in your state. So I know no one wants that. So everyone is, people would be shocked. I mean, most people are stuck. I mean, and it's not about the amount of assets you have. I mean, even if we've drafted estate plans for people with hardly anything, but they wanted to provide for guardianship of their children if something happens to them. That's probably the most important thing that they could be doing. So
it really is. It's really it's kind of like life insurance. You don't like thinking about the worst potential case scenario, but in these types of cases, and I think I would tell me this, in a post-COVID world, do you see more activity because people's people are more vulnerable to what potentially, what they've seen happen, what could happen, how things can change overnight?
I would say maybe. I mean, we did initially when, in 2020, there were provisions for executing will. I mean, no one wanted to leave the house, right? But yes, I think that people have kind of come to this realization that they need to get this in order. So we have seen a general uptick in just volume.
Yeah. So let's talk about the benefits of an estate plan, of a will, of a trust, right? If you look at the one or two, three key things, and you've mentioned, guardianship of your children and things of that nature, right. But just talk about the positives of how you can really control and get things in order if and when you need it.
I mean, the positives, there's really no downside. So, I mean, one of the main points is, if you're talking about a business owner, no matter the size of the business, if you have a trust, I mean, you could appoint a specific member of, your family, your business, whomever, someone that knows the business, because if you pass away without any trust or any will or anything like that, for most small business owners, their biggest asset is by far the business itself, and granted, a lot of times the value of that business is derived from that individual, but that's not always the case. I mean, we're all trying to build businesses that can survive without us, licking every stamp and sending out every envelope. So uh, a trust or a will or some kind of thought out plan will allow you to appoint a person who knows the business and will be able to step in and then help the estate or help your loved ones realize some value out of what you put your work into.
Yeah.
So you can provide for management continuity. That's huge.
Yeah. Think community. I think a common trend that I hear is, I don't have time, right? So everybody feels like they don't have a minute or 5 minutes. And, to me, my suggestion is you reach out to someone in your center of influence. If Andy can help you, that would be great, where you take the time to actually plan this out and don't procrastinate on it. Andy, let me ask you a question. You do estate planning and probate and trust and business law and elder law and guardianship. What's that first step that everybody really needs to be taking when they know they should be doing something, but they're not?
The first step is to contact someone like myself and just have an initial meeting with them, because any good estate planning attorney is going to send you a quick questionnaire, kind of quick, relatively speaking, a quick questionnaire that's going to ask you all the pertinent questions that are hard for people to answer. What do you want to have? Who's going to be the guardian of your children, your minor children, when you pass? What do you want to have happen to your assets? And then it'll also contain a list of your assets, a couple pages, just so that a professional can get a sense of what they're dealing with. And once you sit down and fill out that form and then send it in to this attorney that you've chosen to talk to, they'll sit down and have a talk with you and then give you a real sense of what the next steps are.
Yeah.
Potentially, most likely what it'll cost, how much time it'll take. But just sitting down and going through an estate planning questionnaire will that's the bulk of the work right there that the client has to do.
Yeah. When you talk about the cost of, and I'm not asking you for prices, but
Right.
when you talk about the cost, what's the cost if you don't do it and things go to probate after, something tragic happens?
If there's no will and things go to probate and the cost, it's just a matter of, do you pay now or do you pay later? I mean, the cost in a probate situation, depending on the assets, I mean, it's, if there's some dispute that arises, let's say, I mean, the cost, you can't really put a high end on those costs.
Right.
If we're talking about,
but
it's
just a headache, right?
It's a headache.
The cost is a big headache, and most likely, I'm not an attorney, and I walked out of my LSATs after taking the Princeton review, so I have no ability. Yeah. But it's most likely gonna, from what I hear, gonna cost a lot more.
A lot more, and the time. I mean, you're talking about this interim kind of purgatory type period where all these assets are in administration.
Correct.
But that's not the intention, is to move them on to the next generation or the next beneficiary. So yeah, time and money.
Time and money. All right, I love it. Let's do a quick speed round, Andy. A book that's had the biggest impact on you.
Oh my God. You got to edit this out. I'm thinking too long.
We're live. It's okay though.
Oh, move on. We'll come back to that.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Best business related piece of wisdom, that's what we're talking about, is I spoke to a business owner, an older guy that I looked up to, was very successful. And I was in law school, and he said, I mean, the only way to truly create wealth is if you're making money when you're not working, because I was just focused on getting a good job and getting a good salary and all that. But I mean, that's just kind of a shift in your thinking that once you make that, you see the whole thing differently. It sounds so simple, but I guess if once you really get that, it really changes everything, the way I looked at everything.
I love it. I love it. Andy, tell people who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you.
Our ideal client is anyone that has any contact with the trust, whether someone who is named as a trustee or executor in a loved one's will, someone who's a beneficiary under a will and they have questions about how the thing is being handled. As we talked about before, anyone who's looking to get their estate plan in order is also a great client for us. And we get most of our referrals from other professionals, but we certainly get a lot of people who come to us just, through the door, so to speak.
Good, good. Think community. Well, first of all, Andy, thanks so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it. Any additional information that can put this topic on the top of somebody's list, I think is really, really important as just for everybody, specifically somebody who is in business and wants to protect their family and their business and everything that they built. Think community. We started off talking about, can you find something today to get you unstuck? And I'm assuming you did. I'll extract one thing that resonated with me that Andy said, which is a really big stuck that I see people have in many pieces of their business. But specifically this, what Andy was talking about is have a thought out plan. And whether that's a business plan, your estate plan, your will, your trust, be proactive and have a thought out plan in multiple areas of your business and in your life. Andy, I appreciate you being on the show today. Any last thoughts?
No, just do something. I mean, connect with that professional, that trusted advisor. I mean, even if it's your financial advisor, they'll be able to send you to an attorney that can get you unstuck, as you say. So I think that's very important.
All right, good. Andy, thanks for being on the show. Think community, thank you very much. If you know anybody who would benefit from this episode, please send it to them. And if Andy can help you, please give him a call. And if I can help you, please visit jondwoskin.com. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andy.
Great. Thank you.